to someone who lost it. That evening, while preparing dinner in the galley, a simple stew of dried lentils and compressed veg blocks, Emery found herself humming a melody she didn't recognize. Low, slow, and drifting, like a lullaby remembered from someone else's childhood. Nilo glanced up from his corner. "What's that tune?" "I'm not sure," she said, startled. "It just came to me." They ate in silence, but the song lingered. Even the ship seemed to hum in harmony, its engine producing a faint drone in the same key. When they turned in for the night, Emery couldn't sleep. She lay curled in her cot beneath the viewport, watching the stars like she always did, but now they looked different. Brighter, or maybe closer. Then she realized they weren't closer. She was closer to something she couldn't name. A knowing, a memory. The dream wasn't gone. It had just moved on. Chapter 8. Signal from the Outer Wake. It had been 5 quiet days since the delivery, or what Emery now thought of as a return. The hollow finch floated in the uncharted corridor between the Cloudspire Drift and the edge of the Andrith Expanse, cruising without destination. Some captains called this stretch the Outer Wake, a place between systems, between thoughts. Emery had left the NAV systems in idle, allowing the finch to drift along the faint gravitational eddies of deep space. It was the first time she hadn't programmed a next stop itinerary. "I keep feeling like we should be somewhere," she muttered, running diagnostics she'd already run twice. "You're uncomfortable with stillness," Nilo said from his perch, tail curled like a question mark. "I'm a courier," she said. "Stillness usually means something's broken." "Or maybe," he said, eyes narrowing, "something is waiting." At that moment, the comm console bloomed to life with a ripple of light. A signal, not the usual pings of freight logs or automated dock requests. This was older, organic. A slow cadence of tones, rising and falling in a language that sounded almost musical. "Translation engine can't parse it," Emery said, frowning. But something in her gut tugged. Then Nilo's eyes widened. "It's not a message." "What do you mean?" "It's a memory, encoded in sound." They listened together as the melody played. Every note unfurled like a petal, soft and deliberate. Not mechanical, not artificial. It felt alive. It resonated with the tune Emery had unconsciously hummed just days ago in the galley. "It's the same key," she said, voice hushed. "Same scale." "It's her," Nilo whispered. "Yvain, or what the dream left behind." Emery punched in a traceback on the signal's origin. It wasn't from the habitat. It was from a point further out, well beyond the drift charts. A place that, on old myth maps, was marked as Irius Hollow. Most spacers didn't go there. Too unstable. Ion storms, gravity shears, legend talk about lost vessels and ships seen twice in different centuries. "No one charts Irius," she said aloud. "Why would the dream call us there?" "Because dreams don't follow logic," Nilo murmured. "They follow memory. And maybe someone forgot something important in Irius Hollow." Emery hesitated for only a moment. Then she reached out and turned the finch's helm gently toward the signal's coordinates. As the ship coasted closer, the stars began to behave oddly. Familiar constellations twisted just slightly, like being underwater and watching the surface ripple above. The onboard chronometer skipped a second, then another. The artificial gravity flickered once, then stabilized. "I don't like this," Nilo said, fur bristling. But Emery's voice was soft. "I think we're passing into a different kind of space." Chapter 9. Into the Hollow. Irius Hollow did not appear on any modern map, but Emery had heard of it during her days at the Earth Archives. Back then, it was dismissed as legend, a whisper among stargazers and folklore keepers. A region where light bent oddly, time stuttered, and dreams got caught like pollen in a windless room. Now, drifting into its outer edge, Emery understood why so many stories circled this place. The stars around them were off, not in a broken way, but in a way that felt deliberate. Shapes formed between them, not constellations exactly, but outlines of things Emery almost recognized. The finch's scanners registered nothing unusual, but Emery's instincts stirred. "Something's watching," Nilo whispered. His tail had gone rigid. or maybe remembering us. The ship floated forward slowly, systems stable but quiet. Even the ever-present hum of the engines seemed subdued, like the ship was holding its breath. Gravity is folding in strange arcs, Emery said, reading the instruments. Not pulling us in, not pushing us out. Just turning. Like a wheel, Nilo said. Or Page. They passed what looked like a derelict moon, its surface covered in crystalline vines. A satellite shell, long since lost, drifted gently in orbit around it, scrawled with markings Emery didn't recognize. As they passed, the markings shifted under their lights, rewriting themselves, not to words but to images. A woman standing beneath twin suns. A cat curled inside a flower. A child with stars in her hands. What is this place? Emery asked, breath shallow. The inside of something old, Nilo said. Maybe the inside of a dream. As the hollow finch crossed into the hollow's heart, the signal intensified. Not louder, clearer, as though we're no longer being transmitted, but simply heard. The melody played again, but this time not from the speakers. From inside the ship, from the very walls, from the floor underfoot. The tune Emery had hummed days earlier returned, layered with new harmonies, strange counterpoints. It wrapped around them gently. She closed her eyes and saw a flash of a forest, silver and blue. A girl, Yvain, standing barefoot on soft moss, eyes closed, humming. Beside her stood a doorway made of light. Behind her, another dream, still forming. Emery opened her eyes with a gasp. The ship had stopped. Before them was no planet, no station. Just a space in space, a tear afold. A membrane of golden mist and slow-turning symbols. A threshold, I think, Emery said slowly, we're being asked to go through. To where? Nilo's fur bristled. Wherever the dream was born. Part 10. Through the veil. The mist before them shimmered like the surface of still water. It was not a portal in the conventional sense. No clear frame, no technological scaffolding. It simply was. A soft veil of golden haze and open space, its edges fading into starlight. Emery hovered her hand over the console, unsure of which command to give. We've flown through clouds, magnetic storms, even that time-bent field in the Viren belt, she said softly. But this feels like crossing into someone's thoughts. Or someone's memory, Nilo said. He stood on the dashboard now, watching the veil flicker. Are you sure? No, Emery admitted. But nothing in me says to turn back. The ship, as if reading her intentions, adjusted its alignment. Not by autopilot command, but through some deeper, quieter instinct. A small vibration ran along the floor, subtle, steady. Not a warning. A welcome. Emery took a breath, then pushed the thrusters gently forward. They passed through. The moment they crossed the veil, the view outside shifted completely. Gone was the blackness of deep space. In its place, light, not blinding but soft, diffuse and warm, as if they had entered the atmosphere of a world that had never known violence. The stars above moved in slow spirals. Blue trees floated past the ship. Yes, floated, their roots dangling as if drifting on invisible tides. Leaves turned toward them as they passed, curious. Some of them pulsed with inner glow, reacting to the ship's motion. In the distance, what appeared to be mountains rose. Not stone or rock, but glass. Living glass, arched in crystalline curves like frozen waves mid-fall. And threading through all of it, music. The same tune that had followed them since the dream first pulsed. Only now, it played from the space itself. From the trees. From the stars. I don't think we're in normal space anymore, Emery said, awe in her voice. No, Nilo agreed. We're inside the dream. The ship landed gently on a platform of soft blue moss that sprang into bloom as they descended. No dakin clamps. No gravititetes. The hollow finch seemed perfectly content to rest here. Emery and Nilo stepped outside. The air smelled of lavender and riverstone. Cool, quiet. Above them, sky flowed like silk. Clouds in the shape of creatures long forgotten drifted overhead. Serpents, stags, vast birds with wings of stars. Emery walked slowly, boots making no sound on the moss. She passed a tree that seemed to breathe, and flowers turned toward her presence. Somewhere nearby, a stream gurgled, but when she looked toward it, she saw that it was not water at all, but liquid light. "It's not just a dream," Emery said aloud. "It's a recording of a world that once was, or might be." Nilo padded beside her. "It's her world, the girl, Yvain." The dream formed around her, and now it's remembering itself. In the center of the meadow ahead, a figure appeared. Barefoot, hair loose and golden white. A soft gown made of starlight. Her back was to them. Yvain, still dreaming, still guiding. She turned and smiled. Chapter 11. The Girl in the Meadow. Yvain's smile was not one of surprise. She had been expecting them. She stood barefoot in the moss, arms gently at her sides, head tilted as though listening to something very far away. Around her, petals drifted from invisible trees, hanging in air longer than gravity would allow, spinning in slow, lazy spirals. Her dress, if it was a dress, flowed like it was underwater, catching the light in threads of gold and deep violet. Emery froze, not out of fear, but reverence. Nilo said nothing, his golden speckled fur rising slightly in the breeze, though no wind blew. Yvain stepped toward them. "You found me," she said, voice clear but gentle. "I wasn't sure you would." "We didn't follow directions," Emery said, voice cracking slightly. "Just instincts and the dream." Yvain nodded, lowering her eyes. "Sometimes that's the only way to get here." She gestured to the sky above, where slow-motion aurora swam among the clouds. "This is what's left of my dream," she continued. What the orb carried was just a sliver. The doorway. Emery took a hesitant step forward. "Why us? Why send a signal?" "Because you listened," Yvain said simply. "Most ships would have ignored the pull. Most minds would have rationalized it away." She knelt and touched the moss beside her. It pulsed softly where her fingers brushed it. "This place, it's a refuge for fragments, forgotten feelings, discarded what-ifs. I didn't create it. I woke into it." Nilo stepped forward now, blinking. "You're still dreaming, aren't you?" Yvain's eyes met his. "Not entirely. I'm between. The dream sustained me while my body slept. But now the dream itself is fading. Pieces are unraveling. It needs a new carrier." Emery felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. "You want us to take it? I want you to guard it. Carry it forward. Not in an orb. Not in a vault." Yvain smiled gently. "In your stories. In your memory. In where you go next." Behind her, the meadow seemed to shimmer, ripples of transparency spreading outward from her feet, as though reality here was beginning to peel, to grow thin. "You're leaving," Emery said. "Yes," Yvain said, "but not all at once. I'll stay until the last seed is gathered." Yvain held out her hand, and a tiny glowing seed appeared in her palm. It pulsed once, warm and soft. She stepped forward and placed it gently in Emery's hand. It was weightless. It was everything. "Wherever you carry this," she whispered, "the dream will echo." Chapter 12. Seeds of Memory. Emery stared at the glowing seed in her palm. It didn't burn. It didn't throb or tick or pulse with urgency. It simply was an invitation in the shape of light, as if the seed wasn't just energy, but a story waiting to be remembered. Yvain's voice returned, low and even. "There are others." "Others?" Nilo asked, his tail twitching. "Other dreams like this one. Other fragments. Some are held in sleep. Others buried in places where they were never understood. The galaxy is littered with them, waiting to be reawakened." Emery looked up from the seed, eyes narrowing slightly. "You want us to gather them?" "Not gather," Yvain said. "Witness. Protect. Carry. You're not collectors. You're couriers." The word sat heavy in the space between them. It wasn't the kind of title that came with medals or universal acclaim. It came with silence, with the long work of drifting through forgotten edges, listening to frequencies no one else could hear. "What about you?" Emery asked. Yvain turned to look out over the glowing meadow. The ripples of transparency had grown stronger now, small patches of the world fading, sky leaking into space, Earth blinking out in tessellated shimmers. "I've dreamed long enough," she said softly, "and now I go back. Not to Yulin, not to the world I came from, but to the stillness between things, where stories form." Emery felt a knot rise in her throat. "You're not afraid?" Yvain smiled, an old, gentle smile, far older than her face. "I've already been forgotten once. It wasn't so bad." They stood in silence then, all three of them. The sky above flickered slightly, starlight bleeding through. Distant chords of that old melody, the one that had haunted their journey, floated faintly through the air. Nilo finally broke the quiet. "How will we know when we're near another one?" "You'll feel it," Yvain said, her form already starting to lose edge, becoming more light than shadow. "A tug in your chest, a scent that doesn't belong, a melody you forgot you knew. Dreams don't hide. They just wait for someone quiet enough to notice." The last of the meadow shimmered. Trees turned to mist. Flowers fell upward. Yvain took one step backward into the fading dream and was gone. Emery stood still for a long moment. The seed in her hand no longer glowed. It rested like a memory, warm, quiet, intact. She turned to Nilo. "We're not just carrying cargo anymore." "No," he said, soft as a sigh. "We never were." Chapter 13. Drift Between Worlds. The hollow finch eased itself gently back through the veil, leaving the dream world behind. As it crossed the threshold, reality, ordinary reality, returned with a hush. Stars blinked back into their familiar formations. The ship's sensors came online one by one, and the gentle background hum of the engine reasserted itself like a friend clearing their throat after a long silence. Emery sat quietly at the helm. Her hand still cradled the seed, now faintly glowing again, just a shimmer under her fingers, like embers tucked beneath coals. She wrapped it carefully in soft cloth and stored it in the finch's memory alcove. Not in the vault, not hidden away, remembered. Beside her, Nilo sat upright on the co-pilot's chair, gazing at the starfield ahead. "Feels different now," he said. "The galaxy." Emery didn't respond immediately. She was watching the readout scroll across the display. Everything was normal, all systems green, but nothing felt normal. "We've stepped into something," she said at last. "A thread, a path. I don't think we can go back to what we were before." Courier work was simpler when it was just seeds and spices and old recordings, Nilo muttered. "No metaphysical hite chiques." Emery smiled faintly. "Maybe, but we're still couriers, just of deeper things now." The ship coasted silently through the void. There was no destination charted, and that was intentional. Over the next few days, the hollow finch flew slowly. They didn't rush. They never had. But now there was a new kind of stillness in the way they moved, as if the space between stars had become part of the journey itself. Emery spent the mornings in the greenhouse, tending the starflower she had brought from Solace 9. It had begun to bloom again, softly. One petal had taken on the faint shimmer of the dream world's light. She didn't question it. She simply watered the soil and whispered to it, as she always did. In the evenings, she read aloud. Old books, forgotten poems, sometimes even transcriptions from derelict logs recovered long ago. The ship's interior lights dimmed to twilight, casting soft shadows across the control panels. Nilo would curl up and listen, saying nothing. But on the third evening, something strange happened. The ship sang, not loudly, not even musically, but there was a hum in the bulkhead, a low resonance, as if some invisible chord had been struck, vibrating through the finch's very bones. Emery stopped reading and stood. She placed her hand against the nearest wall. The hum responded, warm and slow. A harmonic echo. "Another dream," she whispered. Nilo opened one eye. "Already," Emery nodded, stepping toward the helm. "It's not calling loudly yet, but it's there, like a breeze before a storm." Nilo stretched and yawned. "I suppose we'd better go find it." Chapter 14. A flicker from the dark. The signal was faint, so faint that even the hollow finch's sensors struggled to hold on to it. It came not in the form of coordinates or code, but through harmonics, long, sweeping pulses barely distinguishable from background radiation. But Emery knew better now. Dreams didn't always speak in words. They resonated. She fed the signal through the Finch's auxiliary translator and layered it over a slow playback of the melody they'd encountered in Irius Hollow. There it was, a hidden note, just one, bent slightly off-key, but intentional, like someone singing a lullaby with a single broken memory in the middle. Emery looked over at Nilo. We're heading toward the Echo Verge. He flattened his ears. The Verge? You're sure? She nodded. The signature is drifting from that sector. We can't ignore it. The Echo Verge was an old starless band near the rim of galactic space. So old, so unstable, that few ships passed through. Long ago, it had been a supermassive nursery of stars, but those stars had long since died, leaving behind whispers, dust, rumors. The ship adjusted its trajectory, drifting toward the darkness. 12 hours later, the stars began to vanish behind them. Ahead lay a kind of blankness, black space not just empty, but hollowed. Light from their own ship dimmed slightly at the edges of their vision. It was like being inside a shadow with no source. Artificially dead zone. Emery asked. Nilo shook his head slowly. No, this is natural, a part of space that never quite woke up. They dropped to impulse speed. The ship's lights flickered, and then something appeared, a small satellite, no more than 40 meters across, drifting in the void. It bore no signature, no call signs, just a single, slow beacon light blinking every 10 seconds. Attached to its side was a domed chamber. Inside, a chair, a bed, and a piano. They docked carefully. The satellite seal engaged with an old hiss. Emery and Nilo entered with flashlights, boots echoing on cold metal. The air was breathable, but tasted of ozone and copper. The piano was perfectly intact, and someone had written music, dozens of sheets, scattered across the